Hi everyone, it's Jay Egersdorff here previewing game week 27 of the Fantasy Premier League. Feels like ages since game week 26, so I'm going to chat a bit about that, chat about game week 27 and some of the themes that are coming up there. I've got the usual stuff, FPL left field options, FPL donut, and we'll chat about the captain options as well. So game week 26 was looking pretty good for me on Sunday morning, so I had loads of players that had scored well: Robertson, Salah, Pogba, Super, Ashley Barnes, and then along came the Man City steam train and totally derailed me. Still got a bit of a uplift, so green arrow, 470k, which is pretty. It was all right, but it was looking a lot bigger before Man City absolutely mauled Chelsea. The bit where I'm really kicking myself and I'm really annoyed about is I put Alonso, so I already had Hazard away at Man City, which is certainly out of hope more than expectation, and I had Alonso for sub, and I should have gone Ryan Bennett, and I know we're only talking 3 points here. Alonso of course got a -1, which is pretty annoying. Bennett only got 2, but those 3 points can be really critical, particularly at the end of the season. They can make a big difference. I remember one season, good few years ago, probably about 7 seasons ago, and Fellaini on the last day of the season got credited with a booking that they hadn't attributed it to him, and it was only 1 point. It was a 1 point loss, but I remember dropping probably around 10 to 20,000 places on the final day of the season, just over that 1 point. So they all count and they all add up. So that was pretty frustrating. Kicked myself a bit about that. But the good news is there's no Man City this week. So hey, anyone who hasn't got a Man City player like me, anyone who does have, is obviously going to have to make a call on that. So we're spared a Man City onslaught for another game week. So credit to anyone who did have Aguero again. I didn't see that come in. I don't think many people did. Back-to-back hat-tricks in consecutive game weeks. That's pretty special, pretty hard to compete with if you don't have him. So fair play, anybody who brought him in, and commiserations to anyone who didn't, like me. So that's game week 26. Let's talk about game week 27. There's a whole load of stuff here that's floating around, and there's a whole lot of excitement in the FPL community. With Thursday morning now, so maybe we'll find out today, maybe it'll be tomorrow, when we hear about these potential double game weeks, which everybody gets really excited about. So what's buzzing around? I'm getting loads of tweets and loads of people reaching out to me saying, what's your double game week strategy, Jay? What's your chip strategy? Well, the answer is I don't have one because I haven't got the fixtures, so it's impossible pretty much to work one out. I think we can try and predict which game weeks or which gaps these missing fixtures are going to go into, but there's a few things that spring to my mind. Number one, our good friends at the Premier League have had a track record of springing surprises, so despite all the planning and the predictions, and you can't have a Premier League game on a European night, and you can't do this and you can't do that, well, guess what? The Premier League, they don't really care, and they will do whatever they feel is right to get the maximum revenue, so television audiences, do whatever is right for them. So until we have that information, I think my view, I'm just staying really calm and not worrying about it too much, focusing simply on the game weeks and the few game weeks ahead, and just playing what is in front of me, because that's all I can do for now. I also think on the chip strategy, there's a ton of debate. What is the right one? And I said it at the start of the season, and I still stand by it now. I don't think since these chips came along, anybody has had a eureka moment and done like a Sir Isaac Newton or Stephen Hawking or something, and pulled out this perfect way of deploying the chips. I think the simple answer is you just need to get as many blooming points as you can. Like, that's the strategy, right? So anyone who, for example, triple captained Aguero for one of those hat tricks, that's it. That's all you need to do is like hit some decent points. Surely that's the objective. So I think on predicting where you're going to use your bench boost, where you're going to, particularly I think the triple captain, I do think you need to be fluid, because the FPL game, whilst you can plan it, you could make a brilliant plan now on paper between now and the rest of the season for your transfers, but you get things that come out the left field, suspensions, injuries, rotation, loss of form, whole bunch of stuff, that means you need to be fluid with your plan. So you can't plan too far ahead, and that applies for the double game weeks, that applies for the chips. for example, what have we seen in the last week? Well, we've seen Man United look like they're probably going to go out the Champions League. It's certainly going to be a tricky one for them to overturn that away in Paris. At the same time, City, last night, I flicked on the match and they were 2-1 down. I thought, uh-oh. And then they scored 2 and now they're ahead in that tie. They've got 2 away goals. You look at that and think that's that's means they're probably able to focus a bit more on the Premier League with the knowledge that they've got that advantage in hand. And we saw things like Chelsea have now gone out the FA Cup. Man United and Man City have gone through in the FA Cup, as have people like Brighton. So yes, while that does mean double game weeks are stacking up, if they've got a game midweek and then on Saturday or on Saturday and midweek they have a cup game that might be more of a priority for them, that's going to impact their team. So you may predict, oh great, game week 35, Man City have 2 easy games. It's not so useful to you when the star man that you've picked for your triple captain isn't playing in the second game or doesn't, we saw, didn't we, just this recently with Sane, and I know unfortunately some people played the triple captainship on him. So you've got to be able, you can't sit down and pull out a strategy now until you know more of the facts. That's my view. You do need to be quite fluid. The one that I did think, which kind of may work, is going early on the wild card. And why I'm thinking that is once you know the fixtures, you can fill up your team maybe with, like, let's say Brighton have quite a few, they have a couple of double game weeks, say, where you can quite easily put like a Matt Ryan on the bench or a Shane Duffy and have him in your squad, maybe Gross or something like that. But by going early on the wild card, you've still got like 8 to 10 transfers left, plus maybe the free hit if you have that. So you can still pick and choose with your team, versus if you hold on to your wild card, of course, then you may play it later in the season. You may only have a handful of game weeks left anyway. So you'll have had to, in the build-up to that, you'll have had to like switch your team around and maybe not have an optimum team right now. Really good example for me at the minute, I'm stuck with this absolute twit, Rico from Fulham in goals. Does seem to get 2 points, but that's because they let in 4 every week and he makes about 8 saves. So not ideal. Is it a priority transfer? No. If I played the wild card and let's say I got somebody with better fixtures, maybe I'd make those points back. Does that make sense? Let's say Rico in that time would have got 6 points. Goalkeeper replacement would have, let's say, got 12 points. Well, there's 6 points there. I could maybe take a -4 and still be up. If I'd have played my wildcard earlier, I'd still have an extra transfer to make. I'd still be up +2 versus had I hung on to the wildcard. So food for thought. I'm not, by the way, saying go and do your wildcard straight away. I'm just saying don't forget you still get transfers. So onto the fixtures for game week 27. I think there's one key point in this, and the elephant in the room, from what I can see, is Mr. Aubameyang. I've not had him all season. I did have a plan to pretty concrete plan to get him in. I'm thinking about that a little bit, and what's brought the challenge into play there is Lacazette being suspended for the Europa match. They're 1-0 down and they're going into that game needing to win, and it's like a matinee show or something, isn't it? Like 5 o'clock kickoff or something. Why is that? It's hard enough to get across London at the best of times. So anyway, good luck if you're trying to get to that game tonight. So the challenge we have there is Aubameyang is of course going to most likely have to play this match tonight. Arsenal have to win, they have to overcome a 1-0 deficit. It's going to be quite tough, probably played in front of about 8 people. They've got this game Sunday, and on paper you look at it and that's probably the tie of the round, isn't it? That's probably the best fixture for, it's a home game against a team towards the bottom. That's what we're looking for a top 6 team. I've been burnt so badly by this evil-looking man, Mr. Emery, this season. And there's just this nagging doubt in the back of my mind where I'm like, if Aubameyang plays the whole match, Lacazette is going to be fresh, so Lacazette's going to play. He really loves Mkhitaryan, and he's back now. He's got Iwobi. He's got other options floating about. Ozil, I don't know where he's gone, if he's fit, I don't know. I don't know, it's just crept into my mind, this element of doubt that whether he could spring a surprise. And the other problem we have is, for me, I've got 2 transfers, so that's okay. So it's a done deal. It's easily sorted. I can bump up Kamara, bump down Hazard, bring in 2 players that are going to play in game week 27 and maybe game week 31. There's more. I know Aubameyang doesn't play, but get some players that are going to be playing in the next few weeks. Problem solved. But then it leaves you short, and I do think that we need to, going back to that double game week strategy, if you look at the game weeks in between, game weeks 28, 29, 30, before game week 31 when there's more blanks, there's a lot of football to be played there. And I looked at, let's see if I've written it down on here. I've looked at it, but I've not written it down. But what I saw was Man City's fixtures go, they've got the Carabao Cup final, and then they've got 3 Premier League games in a row, and then they have that second leg against Schalke. So the Premier League games, I think, are Wednesday, Saturday. So it's hardly a really intense run. And then they have the FA Cup on the next weekend, which they have Swansea, because the draw's been fairly favourable. So you look at that and you think, I think they're playing Bournemouth. They're playing West Ham, Bournemouth and Watford. And this is a team, Man City. I'm sure I wrote this down. Maybe I have. Yeah, I have. Here it is. They've scored 11 goals in the last 3 Premier League games. They've scored 13 goals in the last 3 games in all competitions. So by doing the Aubameyang thing, you're kind of floating a bit because you don't have enough money to get onto Aguero. And of course then you've switched, you've moved your money out of midfield, so you're going to have to lose like maybe a Son or a Pogba or somebody to get onto Sané and Sterling. And it's kind of like, unless Aubameyang then delivers as captain and wins the points back, it kind of gives you a bit, a little bit of a headache, I think, further down the line. And then Aubameyang, he does have Bournemouth, but then he does have 2 tricky ones. So we're not even factoring in, what we're saying there is Arsenal are definitely going to beat Southampton 2 or 3-0. We're not even factoring in the outcome that maybe Southampton will turn up and play a tired Arsenal team and maybe actually get a result or not get absolutely trounced. So I know I'm definitely not helping you there. I'm not helping myself because I need to sit down and work this through. But I did sit down yesterday and have a good play around with it. And that European game has really, really put a spanner in the works for Aubameyang because I was really set on going for it. So maybe reassess it after tonight. Who knows, he might get injured and we don't have to worry about it. We might get rested tonight. So that's that. 3 other points. So like I said, don't get too het up about these blanks and doubles. There's a lot of football. Game weeks 28 to 30, pretty much over 10 days that we've got these games. So remember, plenty of points to play for there. Don't get too bogged down in the distance when you can focus on what's in front of you. I think loads of us are going to have loads of Liverpool and Man United players. My view on that, don't worry, it's going to be a lottery. Will it be 3-0? Will it be 0-0? Will it be 1-0? I don't know. Hard to predict. So just sit down with a pint and a bag of crisps or something on Sunday afternoon and watch that game and enjoy it. And if you get some FPL points, then brilliant. But it's really tough to predict, and everyone's in the same boat, so don't worry. I think the other fixtures, I keep it simple in this game week. There's not really many standout fixtures. West Ham at home to Fulham, you'd have to say looks good for an attacking player. And I think Newcastle playing Huddersfield, that looks good maybe for a defensive player. Other than that, the simplest way to do it is you probably want a Spurs player in there. I still think Burnley away is quite tricky. And just back the home teams and just try and get out the other side. I think if you hit 50, 60 points this week, you've done good. Just get out of there and move on. So that's review on game week 27. Left field options, I've pulled out 3. I sat down for ages yesterday looking at a load of different players. There are some teams with great fixtures, like Leicester's fixtures are awesome. So I've pulled out a defender. I've pulled out Lascelles from Newcastle. They've got a good run of games, and I think they've got a good chance for a clean sheet against Newcastle, against Huddersfield. I pulled out a West Ham player. They've got some good fixtures, and stand with me for the logic on this one. If you needed to perhaps switch the Hazard money and bring it into Aubameyang, but you still needed to hang some money back to maybe go for Aguero the week after, I quite like the idea of, because we've got the wildcard coming up, this guy's not going to have to hang around your squad for very long, and probably when you need him, his fixtures in 27 and 31 are good home fixtures. And that's Mark Noble. So my logic on that is, yes, Mark Noble is hardly the prolific FPL scorer, but he does take the penalties. So my logic is West Ham playing at home, probably in a fairly not high scoring game, but a game where you'd expect them to get some goals and have some attacking play. Maybe they'll get a penalty in that game. He might step up, take it, bag you 8 points, and job done. And then he'll be out the way in a few weeks. You'll be wildcarding him out anyway. Probably not going to be in your team every week. You're just going to have him when there's some of these blanks. He's only 4.8, so good enabler. And then up front, I've gone for a bit of a forgotten man. He seems a bit forgotten even from his own manager, but the expectation is he's maybe had a knock and will play, and that's Vardy. So Leicester have got some good games. I know he missed that penalty. He's got a track record of winning lots of penalties because he's so fast and he often gets fouled. He's a name that isn't talked about. He sits in that weird no man's land between people like Zaha and Wilson and Arnautovic that are around 6.7 million, and then the big hitting strikers. He's in this kind of 8.8, I think, floating around on his own with nobody really to talk to, apart from perhaps Giroud, and nobody really wants to talk to him. So there were 3 left field options. Donut is a pretty easy one. It's basically anybody who plays for Chelsea or is associated with Chelsea. They were god-awful, weren't they, in that Man City game? But so many of you reached out to me and said Kolasinac, and I didn't follow the match on Saturday, i.e. I just got the score at the end, and when I pieced it together and looked at it on Match of the Day, clean sheet, assist, I expect he would have been on for some bonus, and then he puts it in his own net. And it was a bit of a weird own goal. It's like he's lost his head and just booted it into his own goal. So, sorry Kolasinac, but you are the FPL donut. And then lastly, captain options, really tough because, like I said, Aubameyang was going to be the one for me. Pretty obvious, home game on paper, job done. But for the reasons I've talked about and for stitching up your squad a little bit and his rotation threat, then maybe is that one we still want to run with. So the alternative for me is Son. Check this out. 10 Premier League goals in his last 10 Premier League starts. So it's actually 10 in 11, but the 11th game he only played 15 minutes off the bench around Christmas. That's amazing. Burnley away, I know it's never easy, and if I'm right, I think it's a lunchtime kick-off, which I never really like. They're always quite boring. But hey, Spurs I think they've got a pretty good record up there. I think last one was the Kane hat-trick up at Burnley. So maybe that's an alternative. There's not really much else I can see other than just kind of gambling on it. Maybe a West Ham player. I mean, you'd expect them to beat Fulham, Arnautovic or Anderson if you've got them. But again, they're not on bad form, those players, are they? But they're not on the sort of form that Son's on. Son's the form option is where I'm going with that. And probably Aubameyang is the fixture option. So keep that pretty simple. I don't think you can go far wrong if you pick one of those two. So hope that's of value. Thank you for watching. Shout out to my Patreon crew. Cheers for all your support. A whole load of stuff I've got up on there recently talking about blank game weeks. There's going to be stuff on chip strategies when we know the fixtures. Fan in the stand. I'm going to be doing a whole load more of those. We did a Man City one recently which got really good reception. So if you want to check that out, head on over, and thanks for your support on that, everybody. And have a great game week. Don't forget the deadline is Friday night. And then the next deadline will be Tuesday, so it's thick and fast, so get that planning done, and hopefully we'll find out about those fixtures in the next couple of days for the doubles. So have a great weekend, and cheers for watching.